welcome back to Grade 9 Mathematics. You're here with me again, Sir Roliet. And today's lesson, we're going to be talking about quadratic functions and analyzing the effects of the changing values of a, h, and k in the vertex form. So, what do we mean by a, h, and k? Previously, in our discussions, we noticed that the values of a, h, and k can give us an idea of how the parabola will shape. So, we'll learn further as to if the values increases, what happens to the parabola? If the value decreases, what happens to the parabola? So let's first take a. So remembering our discussion about a last time, if a is a positive number, if a is a positive number, we know that it's directed upwards. So the parabola will be facing upwards, right? Upwards. And if a is negative, it will be facing downwards. Now, please take note. Now, if a is within this range, we have a range of 0, a, and 1. So what does this mean? If a is greater than 0 but less than 1, meaning a is within a fractional value or a decimal value. So if a is a fractional value or a decimal value, it becomes wider. The parabola will be opening up wider than its normal state. So this gives us an idea that the parabola will be wider. So it will be opening up not necessarily just a U shape, it will be widening up because of the decimal values or the fractional values. Same goes if 1 is negative. So we can have a is greater than, a is less than 0 and greater than negative 1. So we have a wider parabola, but it's facing downwards, so it opens up in a wider state. This is the two things we can identify with a. Given the positive value, it's opening upwards, and if it's less than 1 but greater than 0, it's going to be wider. But if it's less than 0 but greater than negative 1, it becomes wider. So decimal values give us an idea how wide the parabola will look like. But the greater the number of a, for example, if a is greater than 1, we have a narrower parabola. So we will have a parabola that will look like a V, possibly facing upwards if it's positive, and if it's negative, a is less than negative 1, it will have a narrower parabola facing downwards. So these things we can identify just by looking at the values of a in the vertex form. How about for h? What can we identify for h? h tells us, if we look at the vertex formula, remembering our vertex formula, we have f of x is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. So h here in the parabola, in the vertex form, is the x term in the coordinates, right? The x term in the coordinates. So because of it being the x term in our coordinates, if h is a positive value, so for example, we have x plus 2, that means the parabola will be moving 2 spaces to the left. Okay? It's going to be negative because we changed the sign. Remembering the signs? So that means it moves to the left. Moves to the left. But if the value here is negative, for example, we have a value of x negative 5, it moves 5 spaces to the right, because the coordinates for this one will be, this is 2 and a y value, and then this one will have a coordinates negative 2. This has a coordinates of 5 and the y value, so it moves to the right 5 times. So So the parabola will move from the Cartesian plane's original point of 0, 0. It will move 2 spaces to the right, so it will be shaping here, or 5 spaces, it will be shaping here. That's what we can learn from the h term, or the h value in the vertex form. And for k, lastly for k, what we can learn from k is that it will be moving up or down because it's dictating the coordinates of y. So it will be moving up or down. If k is positive, if k is positive, it moves up. And if k is negative, it moves down. So the coordinates of for example, in a Cartesian plane, an ordinary parabola will look like here, will be in the original point 0, 0. But if it has a positive k, the parabola will be shaping upwards, so it can go up. But if the k values negatively, so it moves downwards. The direction of the parabola will vary because of the a. So these are things we can learn from just by looking at the vertex form from a, h, and k. So if a is positive, we know it's facing upwards. If a is negative, it's facing downwards. If a is in the range between 0 and 1, so it means if a is a decimal value, a fractional value, it becomes wider. Same with negative 1. And then if it's greater than 1, we know that the parabola will become narrower, it becomes steeper, it becomes thinner. For h, we know that the parabola will be moving either left or right. And for k, we know the parabola's vertex will be moving up or down. And that's it for analyzing the effects of changing values of a, h, and k in its vertex form. Okay, wrapping up from a, so this is what we can learn about a. So what can we learn from looking at the value of h? Looking at the value of h, first let's write our vertex form so we can understand further. F of x is equal to a, open parenthesis, x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so h, what does h tells us? H, if we write it in our Cartesian plane, or if we coordinate the vertex, this is going to be our vertex, h and k, right? H and k. So what do we know? That h is the x coordinate. So that means it will tell us if the parabola is going to be moving left or right. Let's take one example. Our example is f of x is equal to, let's say 1, x plus 2 squared. Let's ignore k first for the meantime, so let's just identify as k being 0 in this value. So if x is plus 2 in the parentheses, what happens is it moves 2 spaces to the left. Why do we say it moves 2 spaces to the left even if it's positive? Because of the vertex form's equation. Equation of the vertex form has a negative value here. So that means the coordinates of this, or the vertex coordinates of this, is going to be negative 2, 0, right? Negative 2, 0. So if we're going to plot it in the Cartesian plane, plotting it in the Cartesian plane from the origin, we move 2 spaces to the left. That's going to be our vertex for our parabola, looking like this. Now if we take another example, it's what happens if the example has a negative number inside. So let's say f of x is equal to x minus 5 squared. So that means it's going to be moving 5 spaces to the right this time, because it has a negative value inside following the formula here. We move 5 spaces to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's where our parabola will be placed, with the vertex of 5 and 0. That is what we can learn from h. H will tell us if it's either going to the left, the vertex will move to the left or right. Left or right. Now, that's what we can learn from h. So what about k? K, if we have h telling us if it moves from left and right, k will tell us if it moves up or down in the Cartesian plane. So k will give us an idea if the vertex will move up or down. Okay, so let's take another example. We have f of x is equal to a is equal to 1. Let's say a is just 1, an ordinary parabola. X plus 1 square, then let's say plus 3. Okay, so looking at this Cartesian plane, so if it has a plus 3, that means its coordinates is going to be plotted as -1 and 3, right? So -1 and 3. So -1 and 3 is located over here. 1, 2, and 3. So our parabola will be moving upwards 3 times because of the k value. So what if we have another value of f of x is equal to, let's say, negative x minus plus 1 again square, and then -2. Okay, so it means it moves its coordinates is going to be -1 and -2. These are its coordinates. Because of the negative value here, so it's going to be a positive 1. Sorry, it's negative. It's just facing downwards this time. So, -1 and -2. So it's going to be over here, facing downwards. So what can we identify from K is that we know that the vertex will be moving up or down, looking at the vertex formula. Okay, so what can we learn again? So if A is positive number, it's facing upwards. If A is a negative number, it's facing downwards. If A is in between 0 and 1, meaning A is a fractional value, it becomes wider. If A is in between 0 and -1, same, it's a negative fractional value or decimal value, it also becomes wider but facing downwards. And if A is a number that's greater than 1, the parabola shape is going to be narrower, or it's going to be thinner, while if it's less than -1, it's also going to be thinner, facing downwards. Last, H is going to be telling us if the vertex will move either left or right, and K will tell us if the vertex is going to be moving up or down. So all this we can learn just by looking at the values of the vertex form. And that's it for this session.